Hello, friends. I'm Chris. I'm from Transformation Nation Yoga and Wellness. And thank you for joining us for the on demand version of our Get Your Chakras Together workshop. This will be about a 2 hour experience. And what I have in mind is a workshop that I'm hoping is like a safe and accessible entry point into the chakra system. I'll tell you more about that as we get into it. So, people that are all in on the chakras, like I think there'll be some things of value that you can get from this. Who I really intended this for is the skeptic or someone for whom the idea of the chakras as energetic system is completely confusing and disorienting. What I think you'll need to be safe, to enjoy, and to get the most out of your practice, there will be a physical practice for each chakra. It's not going to be anything that you need anything super intense for. So some of it will be standing. So you could do that on any surface where you're comfortable. Some of it will be seated. Much of it, in fact, will be seated. So for the seated portions, what I would encourage you to do, you could do this on a mat with a blanket. You could do it on a carpet. You could do it on the lawn. Whatever kind of surface you're going to be comfortable on. It might be useful to have something to write on. So a pen and either your journal or a notebook. And the last thing that I wanted to make sure that you knew about is I think this will be enhanced and it will reduce your need to take notes unless like taking notes is part of you listening and paying good attention. There's a handout that I created specifically for this. Now, full disclosure, it's a bit of a handful. I wrote this intending initially that this would be a 5 or 6 page handout for participants, and it ended up being sort of a chakra manifesto instead. It turns out I had a lot to say on this topic. So the if you've ordered this through our scheduling module, there should be a link in your email to get to that handout. But if you just got to it from our Vimeo channel, um, in the link below the video workshop, there should also be a link for that. So pause your recording, gather up your materials, and when you're ready, press play, and we'll get started with our Get Your Chakras Together workshop. All right, friends. So we'll get started with our Get Your Chakras Together workshop. And to begin, we're actually going to start with two practices. So we're going to do a sound healing. This is a practice using the vowel sounds associated with the chakras. And then we'll do a bija meditation. Bija is a Sanskrit word meaning seed. So these are thought to be the seed sounds of the chakras. What I'll tell you about these two practices, first of all, whatever your emotional response is to these practices, it's okay. It's okay. Like often, sometimes if we think something is weird or different, particularly if we're trying to step into consciousness, we're trying to step in our wholeness, then when we get that feeling of skepticism or that something is strange, we end up feeling guilt or shame over that. So whatever comes up for you emotionally, know that it's okay. So the two practices that we're about to do involves I'll ask you, I'll shift your attention to specific areas of your body. I will ask you to visualize a color. And in both practices, I'll ask you to join me in making a sound. So if that doesn't feel okay for you, you can make the sound silently or you can not do it at all. That being said, if there's someone in your house, if you intend to make the sounds with me, if you're sharing your house with someone else, you might choose to tell them, I'm going to be making some noise and just let them know what to expect and that that's okay. I will tell you with these two practices, I learned these are, as I remember and understand them from my yin teacher, Annie Au. And the first like 2 days out of 10 days where we did this in our Chinese 100-hour Chinese Meridian and Yin Yoga teacher training, I thought this is the weirdest thing I've ever done in my life. Um, but I also, we'd finished the practices and I felt terrific. So what I think was, why haven't I done this every day of my life? So again, whatever comes up for you emotionally, it's okay. And you choose this at your own level of engagement. You don't have to do anything that you don't want to do. All right, we're going to start out with um, a sound healing practice. So again, I'll ask you to shift your attention to regions of your body, in some cases fairly broad regions. I'll ask you to visualize a color. I'll ask you to join me in making a sound. But to begin, let's open the practice with 3 ohms. So first, a cleansing breath. Draw in a deep, deep, life-affirming inhale. And then open your mouth, let it go with a ha sound. And for the next 3 breaths, I'll cue you for an inhale, and you can choose to make the om sound for as long as you exhale, or you can choose not to. That's totally up to you. Inhale. And you chant om, imagine that you are everywhere. Inhale. Shift your attention to the space between your eyebrows. Inhale. Now, I didn't cue you for this, but some of you may have already closed your eyes down. If you haven't done so already and it feels safe and comfortable, you can close your eyes down. If that doesn't feel safe and comfortable, or you're just not inclined to do that, keep your eyes open. I'd like you to shift your focus to your lower 3 chakras. So from the base of your tailbone, your pelvic floor, all the way up to about the navel. I'd like you to visualize the color red. The sound is ah. Inhale. Bring your focus up to your chest area. Visualize the color green. The sound is U, EW, and it's a fairly high-pitched U. Inhale. Bring your attention to your throat and the area surrounding your throat. Visualize the color blue. The sound is so, S-O-H. Inhale. Now lift your focus up to your nasal area, your nose and the area above and behind your nose. Visualize the color indigo. The sound is sun, S-U-N. Inhale. Sun. Now imagine these sound vibrations bouncing around inside of your entire body and your head. Visualize the color white. The sound is sum, S-U-M. Inhale. Sum. Come back to a comfortable, natural breath. And we're going to transition right away into our Bija meditation. For this Bija meditation, the mechanics are going to look a bit similar to the sound healing in that I'm going to cue you to shift your focus to areas of your body. These times will be pretty specific for each of the chakras. Once again, I'll ask you to visualize a color, and then I'll ask you to join me in making a sound. Now, the sound will be a chant. So the sound, the seed sound, the Bija changes for each chakra, but the cadence in the rhythm of the chant will be the same each time. So for the first two, root and sacral chakra, I'll demo. So I'll perform the chant myself, and then I'll invite you to join me by saying all together. But after the first two, again, the pattern, the cadence is going to be the same. I'll just say all together. You can choose to join me for the chant or you can not. All right, so if you opened your eyes up again, close your eyes down. Bring your attention to your root chakra, Muladhara. So the base of your pelvic floor, your tailbone. Visualize the color red. The sound is Lam, L-A-M. Lam, 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 lam. Lam, 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 lam. All together. Lam, 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 lam. Lam, 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 lam. When your root chakra is balanced, you will feel grounded, in control, and at ease. Lift your attention up to your lower abdominal area. This is Swadhisthana, the sacral chakra. Visualize the color orange. The sound is Vam, V-A-M. Vam, 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 vam. Vam, 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 vam. All together. Vam, 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 vam. Vam, 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 vam. When Swadhisthana is open, you will experience intimacy and love fully and live life as your most authentic self. Shift your focus up to an area along your spine about 2 inches above the navel. This is Manipura, solar plexus chakra. Visualize the color yellow. The sound is Ram, R-A-M. All together. Ram, 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 Ram. Ram, 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 Ram. When your Manipura chakra is opened and balanced, you have agency over your personal power and decision making. Put your attention up to your heart, specifically the right side of your heart, an area about the size of your thumb. This is your spiritual heart. This is Anahata, the heart chakra. Visualize the color green. The sound is Yam, Y-A-M. All together. Yam, 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 yam. Yam, 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 yam. When your Anahata chakra is balanced, you will easily be able to feel love and compassion for beings outside of your immediate family and pets. Bring your attention to your throat. This is Vishuddha, the throat chakra. Visualize the color sky blue. The sound is hum, H-A-M. All together. Hum, 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 hum. Hum, 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 hum. When Vishuddha is open and balanced, you will be able to skillfully express your truth. Bring your attention to the area in between your eyebrows. This is Ajna, or third eye chakra. Visualize the color indigo. The sound is Om. All together. Om, 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 Om. Om, 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 Om. Your Ajna chakra is balanced. Your intuition will be clear and easy for you to understand. Bring your attention to the crown of your head in an area just above the crown of your head. This is Sahasrara, the crown chakra, the chakra of 1,000 petals. Imagine that your entire body is full of a pulsating white light, and the sound is a single Om. Inhale. Om. Focus on your 7 chakras, the residual vibrations you may be feeling, and imagine that everything is in alignment. If you would close down your eyes, no rush at all, but as you're ready, you can begin to blink your eyes open, taking in first the room around you and the contents of the room. And then if you're sharing this room with other people, perhaps taking in the people with whom you're sharing this room. Great job, friends. All right, friends, we're going to move into the meat of the workshop, and the meat of the workshop will be discussion. So as for promises, I feel like if you take a Transformation Nation workshop, there are certain things you ought to be able to expect from each workshop. So for the Get Your Chakras Together workshop, this is what my plan is to deliver for you, to help you find a tangible entry point into the chakra system that you can verify with your own experience. I'd like to help you to develop an understanding of the chakras as energetic systems through which we can access our wholeness. I'd like to help you to understand the concepts of polarity and excessive or deficient energy in the context of the chakras. This excessive and deficient energy I think of as balance. And I'd like for you to learn actionable practices that you can use to restore balance if you find that you're out of balance in one or more chakras. Now, a word on the handout. The handout, again, looks a bit like a chakra manifesto. It could potentially be overwhelming. So please don't feel a need to read it from cover to cover. It's there for your reference. I think it's written well from a technical writing standpoint. It's fairly organized. So I don't think you'll have a lot of trouble flipping through to find what you want. The other thing that I want to let you know about the practices. Now, I've cherry picked some practices to go over in the discussion portion, and then we'll do some physical practices together on your mat or on your carpet in your home, wherever you're going to be doing the practice. In the handout, you'll find something like 10 to 12 specific practices for each chakra to help bring it into balance. It is not my intention that you do all 10 or 12 practices for each chakra. That would be overwhelming. I'm not doing those, I promise you. Rather, the way that I've organized those, if like breath work or meditation works really well for you, if there's a breath work or a meditation that fits really well with a chakra, I've included that in the practices. If journaling is a tool that works well for you, if the use of essential oils and so on, I've tried to include practices to appeal to a range of different interests and a range of different ways of interfacing with the world. So please, again, don't feel like if you're out of balance in a chakra, you have to do every one of the practices. Pick the ones that call to you. Start there. You never lose the opportunity to add the other practices, but there's no reason um, to, to have to do all of those, friends. That would overwhelm me, and there's no reason for it to overwhelm you. I'd like to talk about what I think of as the trouble with the chakras. So, as I mentioned in the intro, I really designed in this workshop around the skeptic. Um, the trouble with the chakras is not that it's not a sound concept. It's not that it doesn't have value as a way for us to approach our wholeness, but it's so esoteric and ethereal in appearance. I remember when I first started practicing yoga, seeing chakras on T-shirts or on websites or memes, and I thought it was really cool. Make no mistake, I thought it was really cool, but like I didn't get it. I didn't get it at all, and it seemed like it was so far out there that it was really out of touch for me. And then I went to Annie Au's yin yoga teacher training that I mentioned earlier. And those two practices that we did earlier, the sound healing and the Bijan meditation, this is a 10-day retreat style training. We did these practices every day, and they were really powerful for me. So I transcribed them and I started practicing them and I started sharing them with my clients. And a couple years later, one of my former students, who is now a teacher of her own right, shared with me some things about the chakras that she shared with her students. And her students asked, where did you learn that? And she said, I learned it from Chris. I felt all the blood drain from my face. And I thought, oh my God, Shakira, that was literally everything I know, right? That's all I know. Um, so I really committed to learning more. Now, to be fair, I will tell you in my 200-hour yoga teacher training, which was a Baptiste-inspired vinyasa form of yoga, we did have a workshop, a block of instruction in the chakras, where we had a very nice instructor come in and give a discussion, and she had us taking these crystals and hold them over each of the chakra points with a partner. So we partner up, and I think it was if they rotated in one direction, it means deficient energy. If it rotates in the other direction, it's excessive energy. Rocking back and forth meant something. Stillness meant something. So we are trying to give each other a read on the chakra systems. And I remember feeling like my partner kind of got the short end of the stick because my confidence level in the reading that I gave her on our chakras was not high, was not high to say the least. So I also feel like there's some cultural norms within Western yoga that sort of pressure us to feign a belief or an understanding that often we don't really have, right? So I'll tell you, in that yoga teacher training in the workshop, we had a good instructor, and so when she was taking us through the block of instruction for the chakras, she'd ask, "Do you understand?" And I got my head right. I didn't understand anything. I also didn't want to be the only person out of my yoga teacher training class that didn't understand this. So I never made claims about having deep levels of understanding or engagement with the chakras that I didn't have. But when other people insinuated or hinted that I might, I didn't argue with them, right? If my clients insinuated that I might have more knowledge about the chakras, I didn't argue with them. I never corrected them. And it's not like I was like a 19-year-old yoga teacher. I was 45 when I went through my 200-hour yoga teacher training. So I think these are things that any of us can fall into. I also think we have this mysterious and evasive language that makes it hard for us to wrap our heads around the chakras. In my advanced yoga teacher training, I remember a discussion with, we had a small class, there were three of us in my class, and both of my peers were talking about a block of instruction, and one of them said, God, I could feel that in my heart chakra. And the other one said, I know, right? Me too. And I thought, please, God, don't ask me. I have no idea what that means. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. The language is mysterious and evasive. One of my peers in that training had dove pretty deep into the chakras, and talked about his understanding and his practices with the chakras a lot. And I remember asking him, it's like, you've really inspired me, and I'd like to do what you've done and dig into this and learn more. So can you give me some tips and suggestions? How did you approach this? And what he said was, well, you know, I found that the chakras are best practiced rather than studied. And I went, oh, okay, yeah, I can see that. And then I left and I realized I didn't see that at all. Right. So why do we have this mysterious and evasive language? Like one reason is it's sexy, right? That is hot to talk about something like that. What's the explanation for some people in our community using language? I could feel that resonating in my heart chakra, or I feel the chakras are best practiced and understood. Like one possible explanation is they don't really know either. And when pressed into an answer, they'll come up with something evasive there. I don't think that's what's happened. That's what happened in that cases. But I already told you in my 200-hour yoga teacher training, I feigned an understanding that I really didn't have. I felt a lot of pressure as a practitioner who practiced yoga for quite a long time, and as a budding yoga teacher, to possess this knowledge that it looked on the surface like everybody had. So one possible explanation is that we don't really know. Um, Another explanation is, uh, that there are lots of different ways of relating with the world. So my friend who's in my advanced yoga teacher training with me, who said, I find the chakras are better practiced than experienced, um, is very much in his heart. He's one of the most embodied people I've ever met, right? So if anything, he may struggle to get in his head a little bit. Now, in contrast, I'm definitely in my head. I have no trouble getting into my head. I have a lot of trouble sometimes. I struggle to get out of my head and into my body, particularly the heart, right? So we relate to the world in very different ways. I also have found like there are lots of different paths to understanding. Sometimes if I'm honest, I've made assessments of what I think someone should understand about something based on their experience with yoga. So, for example, one of my Ayurvedic clients, um, like he's not practiced yoga hardly at all, right? Has very little or no experience with yoga. But when we talk about certain topics, it's very clear to me that I am the student and she is the teacher. So one example is um, when she talks about intuition, I close my mouth and I listen because it's very clear to me. I have lots of room for growth and development in that area. I'm relatively undeveloped, and she is powerful. She is powerful in that way. She comes from a different standpoint. She comes from a healthcare background, and she also is a Reiki healer. So she's done some energetic healing. So she's taken a very different approach to developing our intuition, but it is really powerful and it's really strong. And I think there are lots of other ways that people can get there as well. So I wanted to talk about the ideas of balance and imbalance. So what I'm going to convey with you, friends, about all the stuff that I'm going to share with you here over the next few minutes. This is my current, right now, it's late January 2022, January 30th, 2022. This is my January 2022 understanding on this topic. I will tell you that understanding has evolved a lot over the last 3 years. I fully expect it will evolve further and probably an equal amount over the next 3 years. So, but this is where I'm at right now. So the way that I understand this is we come into the world, we're born relatively balanced. The energy is flowing through our chakras in a way that's pretty smooth and pretty untethered. But immediately upon birth, we start to get traumatized. And we are traumatized in small ways, and we're traumatized sometimes in large ways. We're traumatized physically, verbally, emotionally, sexually. There's all kinds of different ways that trauma can manifest in our lives. And when we're traumatized, there seems to be something in the human condition that we try to make some changes in our behavior in a way to prevent ourselves from being hurt in that same way again, right? So when we start to notice later in life, maybe midlife, that we're using the same dysfunctional response to a stimulus over and over again, and it keeps hurting us over and over again, it calls for a lot of kindness, curiosity, and compassion. We need to in my opinion, we need to constantly remind ourselves that we developed that behavior, that response at some point of our lives because we needed it as to survive that season of our lives, right? But those changes of behavior change the way the energy flows through this energy system. So if there is a reduction in the flow of energy in a chakra or through the chakra system as a whole, we would say it's deficient, right? Or if there's no energy flowing through there, we would call it blocked. If there is an increased flow of energy through that one energetic system or the system as a whole, we would say it was excessive. Either direction, blocked and deficient or excessive, is out of balance, right? Part of the problem with when we're out of balance is, like, if one chakra is out of balance, then the chakras above or below it have to adjust. They have to either increase or decrease the flow of energy to compensate for that, which means they're out of balance too. Now, how can I tell where I'm in balance? I'll tell you. You can ballpark this. I'll give you some things that have worked for me, some observations that I've made, and then I'll give you something that I think is more definitive. Um, how can I tell where I'm out of balance? Um, I'm going to talk about characteristics of the chakras. And if you say a lot or none of some of the characteristics, that might be an indication that that part of your life is an area where you need to do some work. And you might experiment with some of the chakras. So here is an example. One of the characteristics when we get into the chakra by chakra breakdown is called the demon, or sometimes it's called the scar of a chakra. So, for example, the demon of the root chakra is fear. The demon of the sacral chakra is guilt. The demon of the solar plexus chakra is shame, and so on. All seven chakras have one of these. If you have a default of one of these difficult emotional states, that's probably an indication that you've got some work to do in that area. Here's another indication. Each of the chakras has a color. If you notice that something in your life is really out of balance in the direction of one of those colors, that's something you might want to look at. So here's an example. My favorite baseball team, their colors are orange and blue, Houston Astros. The colors are orange and blue. So up until fairly recently, half to two-thirds of my clothing, my t-shirts in particular, but jerseys too, were orange. My car is bright orange. I have all this orange stuff in my life. I'll tell you a story a minute when I get into something that's more definitive. But when you start to notice things like that, like, first of all, I probably don't need any more orange clothing, right? I can start to diversify the colors of my wardrobe. Orange is well represented. I'm hoping to keep my 6-year-old Hyundai Accent for another 4 to 6 years, but when I replace it, it will be of a car of, I guarantee you, of a different color, right? The orange is really well represented. I don't need more of that in my life. So when you start to see those things, um, like in excess. So I know for me, I have a lot of fear in my life, and my default response to things, in my way of viewing and perceiving my life, a lot of the times is through a lens of fear. Now, with maturity and with practice, I've gotten so I recognize that, which helps me to step back out of that and then view things from a more holistic way. But especially when I'm under stress or under the gun, it's a fear-based response. So again, fear is the demon of the root chakra. Root chakra is an area where I probably need to do some work. So how can you tell in a way that's more definitive? Well, I think the method that I told you about with the crystals, if you go to someone who's trained and experienced and they know what they're doing, there's probably a lot of validity to that and they could really be a big help to you. But it's just a matter of finding someone who has that training, who has that experience, and with whom you have some rapport or trust. Here's another thing you could do. Go to a Reiki practitioner. And like this, like my experiences, and I mean this in a non-judgmental way, but I've got limited experience with Reiki practitioners, but the Reiki practitioners with whom I've worked, I've found a range of experience or a range of quality in the services that they provide. But I have this friend, she's a fellow yoga teacher. She teaches mostly Kundalini yoga now, but she's an amazing human being and someone I just easily connect with and have a lot of respect and affection for as a friend. Also is a Reiki healer. So I did a Reiki session with her at this event. It wasn't even a full session. It was like a 30-minute session. And it was freaking powerful to the degree that when she was working the upper part of my body, I had the colors blue, indigo, and violet radiating across my vision, right? My eyes were closed, but I was seeing these colors, right? Amazing. Um, I trust if you find someone like that, a Reiki healer like that, hold on to them, right? So it doesn't mean that you go and you get a Reiki treatment every week, but keep the number in your phone because that's probably somebody that's going to be a big help to you. So when we got through the session, my friend Giselda, who did this Reiki session with me, we finished up and she said, "So the good news is everything is flowing really well." She gave me some feedback about my heart chakra, but she also indicated root chakra and sacral chakra. She said, "Your energy there is excessive. You need to discharge some energy there." So looking for some of those characteristics that we're going to talk about chakra by chakra can give you a ballpark, and I think it's a fairly accurate ballpark. I think once you look back over the landscape of your life through the lens of the chakras, things will start to look differently and you'll be able to see some patterns that you couldn't see before. But also find a good Reiki healer, and that's someone who might be a really big help to you here. So as much as in my yoga teacher training, I really I wanted to understand the chakras. I thought the idea was cool. The truth is, I also was really skeptical. Like it was so ethereal, um, so esoteric, so otherworldly. I questioned whether I was smart enough, if I'm honest. But I also questioned how real it was, right? Until I found the right portal, the right entry point. So the entry point for me may not work at all for you, but I'm going to share with you what got my foot in the door, which has since opened my heart up to this more. When I first started in early 2021, my study of the chakra system, what I want, let me be really clear, is merging with divine consciousness. Like I wanted divine consciousness on speed dial. I have not found that yet. I think do I think it's possible that it's out there? I do. I really do. But what I have found is a way to understand my life from a really deeper and different perspective that's been really healing for me. In my natural resources career, I worked in public lands management for about 20 years. And part of that, I was trained as a park naturalist. And the training and certification for a park naturalist, one of the tools that they gave us is from Western psychology, and it's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So this psychologist, Abraham Maslow, came up with this model that shows how people approach their wholeness. And what he said is that people have specific needs, and that often the opportunity to meet those needs, there's a degree of sequence that happens with this, right? So Maslow's hierarchy of needs is pictured in this slide. So we start at the bottom with physiological needs. So these are our basic survival needs: food, water, shelter, rest, being warm enough or cool enough. And then we move up to safety. This is security and safety. And then belonging and love needs. So these are intimate relationships, friendships. And then esteem needs, prestige or feelings of accomplishment. And then the peak experience, Maslow called self-actualization. He called it achieving one's full potential, including creative activities. So I think of this as becoming, like, self-actualizing to me is reaching our ultimate potential in our human experience. So if you look at this, like there are certain things that we don't, like, we're not worried about achieving our potential if we don't have enough food to eat, or we don't have clean or safe drinking water, we don't, or we're homeless, we don't have a place to meet. We have more immediate needs. We have to meet those physiological needs before we can start to work up the triangle toward other things. Now, a really great question that somebody asked the last time that I taught this workshop is, how does this pertain to fasting? So many people fast for spiritual practice, or like intermittent fasting in the Ayurveda in my community is really big right now. How does this tie in? Well, the difference is when we're fasting for spiritual practice, or we're using intermittent fasting as a health modality, it's not that we don't have access to food, and it's not that our supply of food has been cut off. It's that we're choosing a different response and a different approach for a really specific reason and a specific outcome, right? So you can see this, right? It's a really, really different thing. So how do we apply this in our lives? I'd like you to be able to take this portal, this model, and apply it to your life in a way that you can remember and you can go, yeah, that makes perfect sense. And you may have already done this on your own. But here's one. I think this is a universal experience. If you go to a training, some kind of a training session for work or what have you, and you're going out of town for this, and let's say you get there, I've had this happen multiple times. I'm sure you have too. Something maybe your room's not ready when you get there, or there's a problem with the ground transportation. So you get there, the conference is in session, or your room is not ready. So front desk takes your luggage. They keep it at the luggage, and they say your training's out at 4:30. Come see us at 4:30. We'll get you checked into your room. The times that this has happened to me, I've gone in and I've physically been present for the trainings, but if I'm honest, my agencies probably should not have paid me for the work that I did that day because I was pretty useless to my agency. I can't focus and concentrate on the training until I see where I'm going to sleep and I brush my teeth. That's the bottom line for me. So that's one example. Here's another from my career. I mentioned my early in my career as a park naturalist, and I had this one occasion. It was before I've been trained in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where I gave this talk on nine-banded armadillo, and I wasn't sure. It was at Purtis Creek State Park between Dallas and Tyler, Texas. So I wasn't sure I was going to be able to give the talk because it was raining cats and dogs. It was raining cats and dogs until like an hour before the talk. An hour before the talk, the rain stopped, the sun came out, everything cleared off. So I get everything set up. I built a campfire, and I got ready to give this talk. The benches in my amphitheater were soaking wet. Were soaking wet. Would not have been comfortable places for people to sit. My park visitors came with good intentions. They wanted to attend the talk. Um, they were really inattentive. They were really inattentive. I would almost say disruptive. And nobody would sit down, right? And I couldn't seem to figure out what is going on. Nobody would sit down. And having everybody that was in the audience standing and inattentive completely disrupted me. It threw me completely off. Um, Once I got trained in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I was able to look back on this experience and go, of course they're not going to sit down, right? The benches are soaking ass wet, and they're going to get wet sitting down. It'd be really uncomfortable. And while they're standing and uncomfortable, they're probably not going to be able to focus. And then me, from my perspective, really like my esteem needs were really jeopardized a bit from all the people standing and being inattentive, and it really drove me further down the triangle, right? So you can see these from your life. Now, I want you to take a look from Maslow's hierarchy of needs to the chakra system. It's not a dead ringer, right? It's not each chakra pertains specifically to one of the layers of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but it is uncanny. Right. Here's another thing that I'll tell you now so that like it doesn't take you 4 years to put it together. There was a point when in early 2021 in my study of the chakra system when I uh, I looked at the chakras and I realized the colors were the colors of the rainbow. The colors we're trained in as kids. Roy G. Biv: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. It's like, oh my God, these are in the colors of the rainbow. Right? It's not an accident. In fact, Anno de Judith refers to the chakra system as the rainbow bridge. But anyway, if you look at root chakra, Muladhara, the first chakra, it roughly corresponds with the lower two layers on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And then they don't exactly correspond, but you can tie them all together as you go through. So what I thought about early in 2021, when I started putting this together, I was looking up Maslow's hierarchy of needs for something, and I had a schematic of the chakra system out. And then I set the two side by side, and I went, holy cow, these are so similar. Um, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I know is real. I know is real because I've seen evidence of this in my own life. I've seen that it works. So this was my portal. Now, this may not be the portal that works for you, or you may already have a foot in the door. You may already have your whole body through the door. That's okay. But if you're looking for one, if you're a skeptic and you're looking for something, this is a really handy model to start to get a foot in the door. And once you get a foot in the door and do some self study, I think you'll be able to find lots of ways that you can relate this to your own life. All right. So I want to talk about a concept about related to the flow of energy through the body from the Vedic system. So the Vedic system comes from India, and yoga comes from this lineage. Ayurveda comes from this lineage. So let me also tell you that like the nadis, they're not talked about as much as in traditional Chinese medicine. The meridians are talked about. The meridians probably have had more press. Um, these two ancient healing modalities have lots and lots of things in common. From my perspective, I'm not a TCM practitioner, nor am I an Ayurvedic practitioner, but I am trained in the Chinese meridians, and I'm trained as and certified as an Ayurvedic health coach. So I have some understanding of both of these systems, and I think there are lots and lots of similarities. One of the areas where they differ is, from my perspective, traditional Chinese medicine puts more emphasis on meridians as these energetic pathways through the body than does Ayurveda and the other Vedic sciences put on the nadis. But the equivalent to the meridians of traditional Chinese medicine in the Vedic system, they are the nadis. And it's thought that there are a lot of these, like up to 72,000 nadis in the human organism. But it's fairly, and you hear lots of different numbers, but 72,000 is the biggest number I've heard. But there does seem to be some consensus that among these 72,000 energetic channels through the human organism, there are three primary channels. But before we get there, let me talk to you about this idea of polarity. Um, so I think of polarity as the currency of energy. So in an energetic system, for energy to flow, polarity must exist. So if you had the experience of wiring up an outlet or putting in a new light fixture or a switch in your home or your parents' home or a friend's home, if you've ever wired it the wrong way and you've wired instead of white to white and black to black, you've wired it the other way, right? A couple things happen. The most fundamental thing that happens is the electrical circuit, whatever it is, it will not work like that. It will not work. So the light won't come on. You won't be able to plug anything in the outlet. It's also dangerous, right? So modern electrical wiring, this will trip a breaker in your house. And that means the breaker's done its job in protecting your house from a fire, because that's the other potential consequence. But the big thing is the energy will not flow if we don't allow that polarity. Here's another example. As kids, I think this is universal. We're given magnets, and we're given this science talk on magnetism. And you play with these magnets, and you push the positive pole of one magnet toward the positive pole of the other magnet, and it repels it. But if you flip it and you press the negative pole of one magnet toward the positive pole of the other magnet, they attract. They will suck together. This same principle, near as I can tell, applies in any energetic system. So in the Vedic system, these charges we would describe as masculine and feminine. Um, so the masculine and feminine qualities, the feminine are the yin qualities, and they have feminine qualities, things like being yielding, nurturing, night, passive, moon, cold, soft, and yang, which are the masculine. So this is dominating, initiating. This is daytime, active, sun. hot, hard. Without this polarity, energy will not flow. Let me show you what I mean. So in an earlier graphic, they showed the Ida and the Pingala or the Pingala on opposite sides. As I describe it, what I'd like you to keep in mind, this may be the right of the seated figure as we're seeing them, but this is actually their left side. And so I'm going to describe it that way. So of these channels, the Ida starts on the left side of the body, and it starts down at the root or below the root chakra, and it winds back and forth along the spinal column, terminating at the crown of the head on the left-hand side. So the Ida is yin, it's feminine, it's on the left-hand side. And on the other side, there's another line of energy, this other nadi, it's called the Pingala or Pingala. I've heard it pronounced both ways by credible sources. Starts in the same place, winds, starts on the right side of the body and winds back and forth. Now, first and foremost, everywhere that the Ida and the Pingala cross, it creates a vortex in this energetic system, which starts its own, and this vortex becomes its own energy center. We would know these as the chakras. Right, so this flows up, and just like the Ida also culminates on the left-hand side at the crown of the head, the Pingala culminates at the crown of the head on the right-hand side. It's also thought that when the flow of energy between the Ida and the Pingala are balanced, that there's another energetic channel along the spinal column. This is the primary energetic channel. It's called the Sushumna. And that line of energy, when it's balanced through those two, the Ida and the Pingala, the energy will flow up along this main line, this Sushumna. So let me show you on this graphic here. So here, again, they're going to show the Ida and the Pingala on other sides, but they just want you to be able to distinguish between left from right. Ida starts and finishes on the left. Pingala starts and finishes on the right. Each place they cross creates a vortex in the energy field, which becomes its own energy system called chakra. When the Ida and Pingala are balanced, energy flows up the central channel, the Sushumna. So we hear this when this is a peak human experience. So you may have heard this referred to as Kundalini rising or Kundalini awakening. Now, another, like I view these as synonymous. My best understanding is that what I'm going to tell you next, these two terms are synonymous. But that flow of energy up to Sushumna from from root to crown, Kundalini rising, is also sometimes referred to as the liberation current. And that's the one that gets most of the press in when we talk about the nadis and the flow of energy. But it also sometimes flows in the opposite direction from the crown of the head down to root. And this is the manifestation current. So this is, again, this is my 2022 understanding. But if we have a concept, the cognitive parts, the intellect and the cognitive parts uh, of our chakra system happen in the upper three chakras. I'll talk about that more in a few minutes. But to bring something new into the world, we have to visualize it somewhere within these three chakras first. And then we have to bring it down utilizing the will of the solar plexus chakra and the desire and the creative capacity of the sacral chakra. But like it also this all has to happen within the container of the physical body, which is root chakra. So that idea starts as a concept, we bring it down and create it in our real world, and we've manifested this thing. So with connection with heaven and earth, the lower three chakras, Muladhara or root, Swadhisthana or sacral, and Manipura or solar plexus are tied to our physicality, right? These are our link to earth. The upper three chakras, Vishuddha, throat, Ajna, third eye, Sahasrara, which is crown chakra, these tie us to both our intellect, cognitive functions, but also our divinity. So the lower three chakras connect us with earth, Upper three chakras connect us with heaven. The bridge that connects those two happens here in the fourth chakra, Anahata, or the heart chakra. The whole thing in total is how we represent and approach our wholeness. Also of note, and you may be on top of this already, but it took me a long time to put this together. So if I can save you some of that, we talk about masculine and feminine energies because of certain qualities of those energies, and frankly, because we need some way to describe the polarity within this energetic system. Um, but all men and women have both masculine and feminine energies. And that's not bad. There's not only nothing shameful about that, that's beautiful, and that's how we're whole, right? So I don't know what your life experience is, but I can tell you that for me, the only times that I can feel healthy, whole, and complete is when I'm trying to find some semblance of balance between my masculine and my feminine energies. It doesn't have to be perfect. I don't have to have nailed it. I haven't nailed it yet. But in order for me to feel happy, whole, and complete, I need to be working toward finding some semblance of balance. And with that, friends, we're going to move into our chakra by chakra discussion. We're going to begin our chakra by chakra discussion at the base of the chakra system, at Muladhara or root chakra, and then we will work our way up. The way this will be organized, I'm going to share with you qualities and characteristics that I thought either might be useful for you in your study of yourself and your study of the chakra system. Um, I'll share some practices, and then we'll go into a section on physical practices. So, of the characteristics, Muladhara, one translation of the Sanskrit is root support. Now, the location, keep in mind, these are energetic systems that don't necessarily exactly correspond to a physical location. In general, these will all be along the spinal column. So if we say at the heart or the throat, we mean the heart or the throat, where that might intersect with the spinal column or on that level of the spinal column. So in the case of Muladhara, we're talking about the base of the spine, the perineum, the pelvic floor. The element associated with Muladhara is earth. So Muladhara is masculine, it is dense, it is hard, it creates the container for the whole rest of our wholeness and our existence. The color associated with Muladhara is red. The bija sound, you might remember this from our bija meditation, is Lam, Lam. And the demon or the scar is fear. Each chakra has a right, and appropriately, root chakra's rights are very much survival and existence related. It's to have and to be. Now, the purpose of the Muladhara chakra is in our survival, our safety, security, our stability, and support. And when it's balanced, we will be comfortable, grounded, and at ease. Anatomy for the chakras isn't strictly necessary for yoga practitioners, but in the past we've had a lot of teachers take this workshop. And so it is useful for teachers to have a sense of where the anatomy of the chakras are. Now, one thing that I will tell you, these are estimates. In some cases, I got these from other teachers. In some cases, this is based on my own understanding of them. But there may be some leeway. So let me tell you what I mean. So, for example, some parts of the anatomy may span multiple chakras. So, one example is iliopsoas, deep hip flexor, primary movement muscle. I would associate with Manipura, the solar plexus chakra. But the truth is, iliopsoas um, begins at the top of the femur at the lesser trochanter, and it goes all the way up to T12 vertebra, the bottom of the rib cage, and actually attaches to the diaphragm as well. So although I would associate this primary movement muscle with the solar plexus chakra, you could, in good conscience, include some iliopsoas movement in a root chakra practice, in a sacral chakra practice, or a solar plexus chakra practice. But given that, the anatomy that I would associate or plan a root chakra sequence around would include the pelvic floor, the lower lumbar spine, the tailbone, the sacral spine, the legs, the feet, and the knees. Let's take a look at some practices. So again, if you go to your handout, there are more practices and there are much more detail on each of the ones that I've listed, but I've cherry picked some here so that you can start to think about some of the ways that these might relate to you. So first of all, to activate root chakra, or even to balance root chakra, think about some ways that you can literally connect yourself to the earth. Now, keep safety in the forefront of your mind. Watch for snakes, for fire ants, for sand spurs, for anything else that could hurt your feet. But if you find a place in your yard or a local park where you could stand barefoot and walk barefoot, this is a beautiful way to literally connect ourselves with the earth. So are gentle physical activities that keep you in contact with the earth. I mentioned walking, jogging or running, also excellent choices for physical activities that connect you with the earth. You could do a meditation for any of the chakras, but what a root chakra meditation might look like is starting out, lengthening out your spinal column, visualizing the total length of your spine, and visualizing a red ember at the base of your skull. And each time you inhale, you feed that ember with your attention and direct the breath to it. So each time you inhale, that ember grows brighter and it grows larger. Each time you exhale, it recedes in brightness and size, but never as small as it was before. So it will continually grow. Because the demon or the scar associated with root chakra is fear, it could be useful, really useful to start to befriend your fear, to look for the message. What's the story? What's the message that your fear is trying to convey to you? And instead of your fear being something that you run away with, how is it that you can sit with it and learn what it's trying to tell you? In the Buddhist spiritual tradition, it said that as Siddhartha sat under the Bodhi tree for 40 days, he was under a constant assault by the devil figure in Buddhism called Mara. And Mara played every trick in the book on Siddhartha, trying to make sure he didn't wake up, he didn't become enlightened. But what Siddhartha learned is when he started to greet Mara in a specific way, Mara would respond in a really predictable way. So when Siddhartha recognized Mara running up, which with practice, by the way, he got better at recognizing. When he saw him running up, he would say, Mara, I see you. Come sit for tea. When greeted in this way, Mara would turn around and run away. So sitting with our fear and having a cup of tea might look like talking with a therapist. It might look like journaling. It might look like sharing this with someone in your life who, like, be discerning who you share this stuff with, but someone who's earned the right to hear your story. These are some of the many ways that you might choose to befriend your fear. Now, let's look at some physical practices associated with Muladhara or root chakra. So today I'm going to offer 3 examples of root chakra practices that you could do. Now, to be clear and transparent, these are 3 of many. Once you understand the anatomy, you know there are lots of things that you can do. So we're going to begin at the pelvic floor. And the first movement is what is like traditionally been known as a Kegel. So there was a time when the Kegel was thought to be the gold standard for pelvic floor health. Now, from my understanding, the Kegel itself is a fairly incomplete movement, but it's a good starting point. So we'll initiate with that. When we do this, what I'd like you to do, visualize the front and back of your pelvic floor and draw those together. So the muscular engagement to draw the front and back of the pelvic floor together is the same as stopping the flow of urine. All right, another visual, this might sound silly, this can be really useful for people sometimes though. Visualize a bean in your underwear. And each time you draw the front and back of your pelvic floor together, like you're picking up that bean. So we're going to do that a total of 5 times, and then we'll reset and build on that. So from your seated position, first of all, stack your joints, float your head over your shoulders, over your hips. Press into your seat, grow to your heart and the crown of your head for your star, so like a nice long spine. And you can have your eyes closed down, or you can open them with a soft gaze. Inhale, draw the front and back of your pelvic floor together. Exhale, release your pelvic floor. Inhale, pick that bean up. Exhale, release the bean. Inhale, draw the front and back of your pelvic floor together. Exhale, release. Inhale, pick up that bean. Exhale, set the bean down. Inhale, draw the front and back of your pelvic floor together. Exhale, release your pelvic floor. Good job, relax. So we're going to build on that. This next part is going to be a 4-count exercise. It'll start the same. I'll cue you. Count 1 is an inhale. Draw the front and back of your pelvic floor together. And then I'll cue you to exhale and lift the pelvic floor as if you could touch the sternum. I know you literally can't. I know you literally can't. But visualize lifting it up, engaging the muscles as if you could touch your sternum with your pelvic floor. And then I'll cue you to inhale, gently release your pelvic floor, exhale, relax. We'll do this a total of 5 times. Inhale, draw the front and back of your pelvic floor together. Exhale, lift your pelvic floor up to your sternum. Inhale, release your pelvic floor. Exhale, relax. Good job. 4 more just like that. Inhale, pick up that bean. Exhale, lift the bean up to your sternum. Inhale, set the bean down. Exhale, relax. Inhale, front and back of your pelvic floor draw together. Exhale, lift the pelvic floor up to the sternum. Inhale, relax your pelvic floor. Exhale, relax. Inhale, pick up the bean. Exhale, lift the bean up into the chest cavity, past the sternum this time. Inhale, set that bean down. Exhale, relax. Inhale, draw the front and back of your pelvic floor together. Exhale, lift them up to your sternum. Inhale, release your pelvic floor. Exhale, relax. Great job. So that's one example of a root chakra exercise you can do. Also, most people need some help with their pelvic floor for pelvic floor stability, or in some cases it's too stable. But this is an area of the body that all of us should be working. So that's one example. Here's another. From a staff pose or a Paschimottanasana, I'm going to turn to the side. So for me, that means elevating the hips to keep my pelvis rocking forward. Now, typically in a vinyasa formatted class, we would say things like straighten your legs, press the backs of your knees down toward the earth, flex all 10 toes back towards your face. Don't worry about that here. Instead, start bouncing the backs of your knees down. In fact, you might even lower your seat down to the earth, hands under your shoulders, and just bounce your legs on the earth. You can come into stillness. Now come into butterfly legs. So this would be, in Sanskrit, Baddha Konasana. Bring the soles of your feet together. Pinky edge blades of your feet are resting on the earth. Hands come to the bottom of your feet. Start rocking forward and backward. Now some people will be able to rock up onto the pinky edge blades of the feet enough to lift the seat. My body does not do that. Yours may. But see if you can feel the perineum rocking into the earth. And then come into stillness. And you can release from there. Those were 3 examples of root chakra physical practices. We're going to move on to the sacral chakra. This is Swadhisthana, sacral chakra. I've read many translations of the Sanskrit Swadhisthana. The one that I like the best is the sweetness. The approximate location is along the spinal column in line with the sacrum in the lower abdominals. Sacral chakra is associated with the element of water. The color is orange. The bija, the seed sound is vam, V-A-M. The demon of the scar is guilt. The right is to feel. So the purpose of sacral chakra is creativity, pleasure, and sexuality. Now, the pleasure, certainly sexual pleasure is included in this, but it's not limited to sexual pleasure. It's any kind of pleasure. When sacral chakra is balanced, we'll connect well with others and we'll live life as our most authentic selves. So the anatomy that I would associate with sacral chakra is the pelvis, the hips, the sacroiliac or SI joint, and the lower abdominals. Now, if you remember when we talked about root chakra, I told you that was masculine. In order to maintain polarity throughout the system, you will find that the energetic charge on each chakra, they alternate. So sacral chakra has to be feminine. And it is, in contrast to the hardness, the firmness, the root chakra is the container. Sacral chakra is feminine. It's soft, it's fluid, it's water. And I'll tie these together when we get to the next chakra as well. But let's take a look at some practices. So sacral chakra, again, is associated with water element. So one thing may be to increase your time with water. So if you live on the coast, that might be getting into the ocean. But if you're in close proximity to a lake and the weather cooperates, maybe it's getting out to a lake. But like there's certain times of the year. I live in Houston, Texas, and it's been freezing cold the last few weeks. There's no way I'm getting in the water outside, but it might look like taking a bath or taking longer showers. You could do a sacral chakra meditation. So I like to pair root, sacral, and solar plexus chakra meditations together. But the red ember that you visualize growing at the base of your spine in the root chakra meditation for sacral chakra, this could be, you could do this a couple different ways. You could do this as an orange ember that starts to glow. You could also do this as a flower that starts to blossom and opens up with orange petals, right? It's a beautiful metaphor. Finding ways to move through your guilt, which again could be through journaling, it could be through working with a therapist. If you look at your handout, Anodea Judith, who wrote the primary references that I used in my study of the chakra system, Eastern Body, Western Mind, and Wheels of Life. I've got some stuff in the handout that's really Anodea Judith stuff. It's attributed to her in there that's really useful. You could develop a Nadi Shodhana practice, alternate nostril breathing. Now, I'm not going to get into this now in the interest of time, but if you like to start to learn to have a practice like this, what I would encourage you to do, get in touch with me, and I have alternate nostril breathing as a water category practice in the Transformation Nation breath practices, so I can make that available to you. You could also take Supta Baddha Konasana. So this is a yoga pose. It's a reclining bound angle pose, and I can describe it to you. But this is a pose where you're on your back with the soles of your feet together on the earth, soles of your feet pressing together, pinky edge blades of your feet resting on the earth, gravity drawing your knees down toward the earth. Now, I would highly recommend placing blocks under your knees or your thighs. That action with the pinky edge blades of the feet on the earth and gravity drawing the knees down can be like a can opener for the sacroiliac joint. So I would support your thighs with blocks. Then you can have your arms teed out to the side. You can reach them out over your head. Often this is cued one hand on your belly, one hand on your heart. When I'm having a difficult day, I place both hands on my heart. This is a great pose to practice receiving. So if giving is your jam, but receiving doesn't come easily, this is a pose that will help you practice that. Now, let's look at some physical practices that I would associate with the sacral chakra. All right, so again, with the sacral chakra, these are just examples. I'm going to give you 4 examples of sacral chakra exercises. So one, if you come back to Baddha Konasana, soles of the feet together, but here find butterfly and flight. So bring the knees up toward the earth, release the knees back down to the earth. Knees up to center, down to the earth. I really like this on the back as well. Let me show you what I mean. Now, for teachers, when I'm cueing this, when people are on their back, The first couple of iterations, I cue them to do this with the hands on the backs of the thighs. So on an inhale, use your hands, press your knees back up to center, soles of your feet resting on the earth. Bella's really curious about what we're doing. And then exhale, with the support of your hands, release your knees down to the earth. Inhale, knees up to center. Exhale, release down toward the earth. Now, from this point forward, if people are comfortable, they can do the same movement without the support of the hands, but in tandem with the breath. Inhale, lifting the knees. Exhale, letting the knees fall. All right, from here, flip over onto your belly. And here's a few options. So I like this with forearms crossed in front of the body, and you can release your forehead down to the back of one wrist. On an inhale, scoop your belly button towards your sternum. Feel your pubic bone root down into the earth, and then start lifting the right leg up toward the stars. Turn the toes down toward the earth. Press through the heel. Lift the right leg. Continue to breathe. And then lower the right leg down to the earth. Inhale, scoop your belly button towards your sternum, pubic bone roots into the earth. Exhale, lift the left leg. Closed hip, so toe turned down toward the earth, pressing through the heel. Lift the left heel as high as you comfortably can. And then on an exhale, release your left heel down. Inhale, belly button to sternum. Exhale, lift the right leg. Lower the right leg down. Inhale, belly button to sternum. Exhale, lift the left leg. Continue to breathe, breathing the whole time. Right, when we set down this time, we're going to do both legs at the same time. Lower the left foot down to the earth. Inhale, scoop your belly button towards your sternum. Exhale, lift both legs. Toes of both feet are flexed back toward the face. Toes are pointing down toward the earth. Press through the heels. Continue to breathe. I think you'll find this to be really engaging for the core and the lower back too. Lift the legs any amount higher, and then gently lower them down. And then start rocking. Press the right hip point down into the earth. Rock over, press the left hip point down into the earth. And gently, rhythmically rock back and forth, alternating, just a prone hip rocking. Then come into stillness. Bring your hands under your shoulders. Press yourself up onto your knees. Those are 4 examples of sacral chakra physical practices. As we move up the spinal column, the next stop is at the solar plexus, Manipura chakra. Now, the translation I've heard that I like the best is lustrous gem. The approximate location is about 2 inches above the navel. The element is fire. So if you remember, the lower 3 chakras, I said, are associated with our physicality. right? So if we can relate this to the physical sciences, if you think of root chakra or Muladhara chakra is dense, hard, masculine. In the physical sciences, we would say that was matter. And as we moved up to the sacral chakra, I said that that was feminine. It was soft, fluid, moving. In the physical sciences, we would call this movement. So then we get, in physical sciences, if you combine matter with movement, the outcome is energy, and that's the nature of the solar plexus chakra. So the energetic charge is very much masculine. The color is yellow. The bija, the seed sound, is ram. The demon or scar is shame. And the right is to act. The purpose of the solar plexus chakra, this is our energy and power center. This is our drive and our willpower. When Manipura is balanced, it said we'll have agency over our personal power and decision making. Now, as for anatomy, the anatomy that I would associate with solar plexus chakra includes the iliopsoas, which I described in detail earlier, the diaphragm, but also the upper abdomen and the obliques. We'll take a look at some practices for solar plexus chakra. One is to manage the intensity of your personal fire. So I was a wildland firefighter during my public lands career for years. So part of the training is in the fire triangle. So you're probably familiar with this. A fire needs three things to burn. It needs fuel, it needs oxygen, and it needs a source of heat. It needs a spark, right? And if you take any one of these three things away, the fire will go out. But if they're not managed appropriately, the fire will burn too hot too. And we are under tremendous societal pressure to burn too hot in our lives. So we are pushed hard in our careers. We often are under pressure from lots of different places to push hard in our personal lives. Maybe instead of looking for an A plus all the time in every aspect of our lives, we dial that back. We try to shoot for maybe a B or a B minus. If you consistently put your effort at a B minus in any area of your life, you will have great results, and you'll have results that are much more sustainable. So if you're interested in this, on my website, one of my blogs is called Stewardship of Your Inner Flame, and I talk specifically about solar plexus chakra balance and imbalance in terms of professional career. Another solar plexus chakra activating practice is called, Sanskrit is Kapalabhati. But when this is taught, this is called breath of fire. Like the alternate nostril breathing we talked about that's associated with the sacral chakra, if you're interested in Kapalabhati, get in contact with me in my premium content. I have a couple of breath of fire practices that are recorded and available. You might try metta meditation. Metta is loving kindness. I have a metta meditation in my content as well. Shining a light into the darkness of shame can also be really useful, and moving through your shame. So if the difficult emotion that you end up pushing up against most frequently is shame, that's an indication you may have some work to do here. So same tools that I talked about earlier. Talk with a therapist. Find a friend who's earned the right to hear your story. For me, that's my brother, right? For other people, it might be like a really close friend. But have someone so that you can shine a light into this darkness. Over time, that's helped me to become much more objective about my story. If you go to the handout, much more detail on all these practices and many other practices as well. Let's look at some physical practices for solar plexus chakra. All right, so I'm going to offer you three options for physical practices for solar plexus, Manipura chakra engagement. So the first two are from seated. So from this seated position, left hand can stay palm facing down on your knee. You can flip it up. Bring your right hand palm facing down in front of your solar plexus, with the thumb maybe 1.5 inches or 2 inches from your chest. Gaze is neutral and soft for now. On an inhale, flip your right palm up, lift it up toward the stars, follow it with your gaze. Exhale, flip the right palm down toward the earth. Follow it with your gaze back down to the solar plexus. Inhale, flip the palm, lift it up over your head. Follow it with your gaze. Exhale, flip the palm down. Soft gaze follows it down by the solar plexus. Continue flowing through this at the cadence and the pace of your own breath. Finish up the round that you're working on here. And the next time that right hand reaches the level of your solar plexus, find an apparent pause. Release your right hand down anywhere on your body. Bring the palm of your left hand, palm facing down, left thumb an inch and a half from your solar plexus. On an inhale, flip the palm up toward the stars. Lift your left hand skyward, follow it with your gaze. Exhale, palm down, gaze down. Just like the other side, at the cadence and the pace of your own breath. Finish up the round that you're working on right now. And the next time that left palm is facing the earth at solar plexus level, find an apparent pause, release your left hand. Right. So the next example is mongoose pose. So to start, lengthen your right leg long, flex the toes in your right foot back towards your face, put a generous bend in your left knee, solely your left foot on the earth, and then step your left foot over your right knee. So it sounds like I'm setting us up for half Lord of the Fishes, but instead, remove your support from under your seat, walk your hands over to the right, and start slumping your right rib cage down to the earth. So we're finding a whole side body stretch along the right rib cage. Relax the neck, breathe. And I learned this as mongoose pose. So we're slumping a bit into the right shoulder socket, but we're allowing space and length from the right hip all the way up into the right armpit. Right, to come out of this, engage the shoulder socket first, hands under your shoulders, lift yourself up, unwind the legs. So left leg long, put a generous bend in your right knee, solely your right foot on the earth, step your right foot over your left, walk your hands over to the left, and then slump into that left shoulder socket. Release the left side of your rib cage down toward the earth. And again, there's no reason to maintain tension in your neck here too. So you can release maybe your left ear to your left shoulder. All right, engage, press out of that left shoulder socket first. Hands under your shoulders, lift yourself up, unwind your legs. Now, I'm trying to be careful and not do a lot of transitions from seated to standing, just for efficiency standpoint. But before we move on to heart chakra, I want to show you one other solar plexus chakra movement. It's called making the sun. So we're going to do this from a standing position. So make your way into a standing position. So from your standing position, bring your feet out hip distance apart. Turn your toes at 10 to 12 degrees. Put a little bit of a flex, a little bend in your knees. Hands down by your waist, palms facing forward. Gaze is neutral. Chin is level. So enough space between your chin and your throat that you could hold a tennis ball. On an inhale, lift your gaze, sweep your arms up over your head, and then exhale, palms down, bring your gaze back down to neutral, hands down by your waist. Maybe wrist cross in front of your body. Inhale, lift your arms up over your head. Exhale, hands down by the earth. Continue flowing through this at the cadence and the pace of your own breath. Anno Deo Judith calls this making the sun. Very easy to fit into a vinyasa sequence class. And it feels really nice. All right, finish up the round on which you're working right now. And the next time your hands come down by your waist, turn the palms forward, find an apparent pause. Great job, friends. So those are 3 examples of solar plexus chakra specific exercises. All right, the next step up along what Anno Deo Judith calls the rainbow bridge, the chakra system, is anahata or heart chakra. My favorite translation of anahata that I've heard is unstruck. So the location, again, along the spinal column, but in line with the heart. The element is air. The color is green. The bija, the seed sound, is yam, Y-A-M, yam. And the demon or scar is grief. Now, the energetic charge, again, Manipura, solar plexus chakra, was masculine. That means heart chakra has to be feminine. The right is to love and to be loved. The purpose is acceptance of self and others. When we're imbalanced in the Anahata chakra, we'll easily feel love and compassion for people outside of our immediate family and pets. Now, as for anatomy, this is where it gets tricky. If you look at 4th, 5th, and 6th chakras, they're in fairly close proximity, especially 4th and 5th. But think about the front and the back of the heart, thoracic spine, the shoulders, arms, and the hands. And let's take a look at some practices. So you can do a hand chakra opening. So try this with me. If you reach your arms out so your forearms are parallel to the earth, flip your right palm up toward the stars, left palm faces down toward the earth. Close your hands into fists and then open and close as fast as you can, at least 15 times. Now, in yoga, often we give cues about things, and it sounds like we're speaking in metaphor, and we are. We're often speaking in metaphor. I'm going to ask you to do something in a few moments that sounds like we're speaking in metaphor, but I mean it quite literally. All right, after about 15, come to a pause, flip. Right palm faces the earth, left palm faces the stars. Close and release as fast as you can, at least 15 times. When we stop, I'm going to have you hold the palms of your hands facing each other in front of your chest. We'll start about 12 inches out. You can close down your eyes, and I want you to literally feel for energy. Come to a pause. Have the palms of your hands come together. If you feel safe and comfortable, close down your eyes. Feel for a tangible, literal flow of energy between your hands. And you can stop when you get there. If you don't feel it, keep closing the gap. Get the hands closer and closer together. All right, so if you feel nothing, if it's crickets, that's okay. That happens to people a lot. In fact, it happens to me sometimes. I do practices like this a lot, and I find the more frequently I do them, the harder it is for me to feel that. So hand chakra opening is one practice that you can associate with the heart chakra. Why hand chakra? It's thought that there are minor chakras in other parts of the body, including the palms of the hands and the soles of the feet. You can create a breath of joy practice. Now, breath of joy is a full body breathing experience. It would be like the yogic equivalent of a burpee. I don't have one yet, but in the next week, I will create a breath of joy practice, and I'll put that on my free premium Vimeo and YouTube channels. So that'll be available to you if that's useful. Grief, like shame with the Manipura, the solar plexus chakra, it's a difficult emotion. It's one that people don't talk about. Same with grief. The demon of the scar for heart chakra is grief. It's important to let ourselves feel the full range of human emotions. And with grief, it may involve talking it through with a therapist or, again, a close friend or someone in your life who's earned the right to hear your story. Tell yourself, I love you every day. Now, you can do that literally. You can put one thing that I think is really sweet. You could put love notes for yourself in your lunch, right? That can be really nice. One thing that I do sometimes, I keep a dry erase marker in my bathroom, and especially when I'm going through a difficult week, I'll put little love notes on my mirror. So first thing I see when I get up in the morning and I'm brushing and flossing my teeth might be "You are enough." Last thing I see before I go to bed at night might be "You have everything you need." It might be "I love you," but find different ways to convey loving messages to yourself. And don't settle in your relationships. You are the latest, greatest in millions of years of evolution. You're the latest, greatest development. You deserve great things in your life. So, if you don't have those things right now, it doesn't necessarily mean you abandon the relationship. But it does sometimes mean for some of us setting boundaries. I know how hard that is, but asking the people in our lives for what we need really is the people in our lives are not mind readers. They're not mind readers. Often we think that they're going to just intuitively know, but often what they need from us is not the same thing that we need from them. So it's not an intuitive thing for them. They don't experience life in exactly the same way that you do. So you're going to have to ask them for what you need. I know that's difficult. It's difficult for me. I'm sure it's difficult for you too. But there's no reason to settle in your relationships. You're worth great love. Now, let's look at some physical practices for anahata or heart chakra. Right. So I can think of four easy heart chakra specific activating exercises. One we did in the discussion practice with the hand chakra opening. Another one is it's basically, I think of it as a qigong exercise, but find a high horse pose. So feet a little wider than hip distance apart, toes turned out about 12 degrees. Put a little bend in your knees. Chin is level for now. Reach your arms out over your head. Turn the palms out. Lift your gaze and find a light action of drawing your shoulder blades together. So this isn't like an action like you're trying to pinch a broomstick between your shoulder blades. This would be more like trying to hold a volleyball between your shoulder blades. Now feel for openness in your heart. Maybe feel for energy entering your body through your heart, or maybe a sense of warming. And if all of the energetic stuff is way too hippy dippy, the warming, I think you won't have to stand here long with a bend in your knees, shift more weight into your heels. Yep, like that. You'll start to feel the legs burning, also the arms, the shoulders, maybe even the upper back. We're going to treat this as a qigong. So as you come out of this, let the arms fall down by your waist like they were falling through honey, and let them come to float in front of your thighs by about an inch. And we're going to do a qigong clearing. So on an inhale, circle your hands up to shoulder height. And then as you exhale, visualize pressing a ball down to the bottom of a swimming pool. So a little bit of resistance. One more time. Circle your hands up to shoulder height. Press the ball down to the bottom of the pool. Good. Now from there, You can straighten the legs a little bit if you like, but I'd still like more weight in the heels. Bring your arms parallel to the earth, palms face down. Start to make small circles forward. And if you have any obstacles, like I've got walls close to me here, just going to move a little forward. Now from the small circles, start to make medium-sized circles. From your medium-sized circles, large circles. And then go from large circles to medium-sized circles. And then medium-sized circles to small circles. And then find an apparent pause. Now we're going to do the same thing in the opposite direction, same MO. Start small, go to medium, then large to medium to small. At your own pace, to your own breath. And start to approach stillness. And then release your hands gently down by your waist. Maybe shake your arms out. It's going to be fairly arm and shoulder intensive here. So for the next one, starts the same way. Tee your arms out to the side. Shift the weight into the heels. Scoop your belly button towards your sternum. And then this is going to be an 8-count exercise. We'll pulse to the left for 1, 2, 3, once in the center, and then 3 times to the right, 2, 3, center. The full is 8 count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You got it. Left, 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 center, right, 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 center. Left, 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 center, right, 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 center. Keep going on your own. So when I was in the Army, this was a basic calisthenic exercise called the turn and bounce. And then Anno Deo Judith describes it in really explicit detail in, I think it was in Wheels of Life. And I thought my drill sergeant from my basic combat training, Drill Sergeant Donaldson, would have lost his mind if we'd realized that what we were doing was a heart chakra activating exercise. Finish up the round that you're working on right now. Find an apparent pause. Release your hands down by your waist. So those were 3 examples, plus the 4th is that hand chakra opening we did in the discussion for heart chakra activation. So as we continue to move up the rainbow bridge, we come to the 5th chakra, Vishuddha, which is throat chakra. The translation that I've heard around this that I like the best is purity. The location is along the spinal column, but level of the throat. The element is ether. This is also synonymous with space. The color is blue. The bija or seed sound is ham, H-A-M. The demon or scar is fear. Heart chakra was feminine, which means throat chakra must be masculine. The right is to speak, and the purpose is self-expression, communication, and vibration. Now, I will tell you, when I started studying Vishuddha, I thought I love communication. And I thought that was going to be the part that really piqued my interest most. And while it is interesting to me, it's not the most interesting. The most interesting to me is the vibrational nature of the throat chakra. It's said that when Vishuddha is balanced, we'll be able to skillfully express our own truth. And sometimes you'll hear this said as speak, like we say in yoga a lot, well, I need to speak my truth. Yes, and this is communication is much broader than that, and this applies to the written word as well. So I usually think of this in terms of not just speaking, but also more broadly expressing our truth. The anatomy. So Vishuddha chakra shares thoracic spine and shoulders with heart chakra, but I would also include and add the neck in that as well. Let's take a look at some practices for Vishuddha. So if you like breath practices, one breath practice, it's called lion's breath. What this might look like is an inhale through the nose, and on the exhale, make the eyes very big, open the mouth wide, stick out the tongue in a very audible exhale, something like this. If you have a yoga practice, one place where this works really well is frequently in vinyasa yoga. I include this in almost every vinyasa class I teach. Is I call it cat rolling, but a fluctuation between calf or cow pose and cat pose. And if you were to do that, drop the belly into the cow pose as you inhale through the nose, and then as you exhale, the lion's breath through the mouth. So you could try that. I don't have a lion's breath pranayama in my content right now, but I will have one before I air this practice on February 20th, 2022. I will have that available to you. Another throat chakra practice is practicing right speech. In the Buddhist spiritual tradition, in the Noble Eightfold Path, there are eight things that we can do, and one of them relates to right speech. And the way that I understand right speech, to boil it down and distill it in a really understandable and fairly succinct way, is it truthful? Like before I say something or before I put something into a blog or put it out on social media, I run it through a filter. And the filter is five questions. Is it truthful? Is it useful? Is it kind? Is it timely? And am I the appropriate person to be saying this? And what my experience has been around right speech, when I use that kind of discernment and that kind of judicious screening before I let something pass through my keyboard or come out of my mouth, usually things come out okay. What I express usually is received as I intended. Everything comes out okay. When I am less judicious about it, it's a crapshoot. It is a crapshoot. It doesn't always work well. Making good vibrations is a throat chakra practice. What I mean by that is, using the throat. So that might be speech, but it could also be singing. Why does it feel so good to belt it out and sing in the shower and sing in the car? I don't have a marvelous singing voice for sure, but I love to sing. It feels terrific. Also chanting. So if that sound healing in the Bijan meditation that we did earlier resonated with you, I have those practices on both my YouTube content and my Vimeo content that you could have access to. Brahmari breath. Brahmari is Sanskrit for black bees. So this is the black bees breath. So this is, one of my teachers describes this as making the om sound, but through the nose. So it's a humming breath. So it's a long, deep inhale, and then making a humming noise out the nose for as long as you can exhale. And I also have Brahmari breath practices on my Vimeo and I believe on my YouTube content you could access. Valuing our own story. How often, when we're talking about our experience or our perspective, do we undercut and um, invalidate our own story and our own experience? Watch for that in our lives. It seems subtle, but it's from an energetic standpoint. I think it's really not. I think our psyche is paying attention to how much we're respecting ourselves, and part of respecting ourselves is valuing and respecting our story. Another throat chakra practice is to practice deep listening. So communication in general is related to the throat chakra, not just speaking. So that involves listening too. Now, deep listening is hard. It takes a lot of energy and focus, but it's a skill. It's a learned skill. So it's something that you can practice and get better at. So as with all of them, again, if you go to the handout, you'll get more detail on each of these practices, and you can also get a lot of additional practices that may better sit or resonate with you. Let's look at some physical practices for throat chakra. All right, so I've got two examples for you of exercises to activate Vishuddha chakra. So from a seated position, find the long spine again. Inhale, chin parallel to the earth. Exhale, release your chin down towards your chest. Inhale, lift your chin up towards your left shoulder. Exhale, release your chin to your chest. Inhale, chin to right shoulder. Exhale, chin to your chest. Inhale, left. Chin to chest, I'm just going to call center now. Center. Right. Center. Keep flowing through this on your own. So one thing to note, like some of these chakra specific exercises, we don't only do them when we have an energetic theme in mind. Right? So I have several practices, for example, that are themed or physically themed around the neck. And so we do lots of different things for the neck. I'm sure it's great for the throat chakra, but my intention with my neck classes doesn't really have much of anything to do with the throat chakra. It's a nice benefit and side effect. Same thing with the vice versa. So the next exercise that we're going to do, I did this as a live workshop once, and somebody said, "Ooh, this feels like camel's pose." Like, well, it is. It is camel's pose. So start to look in your practice. Once you understand where the anatomy is with the chakras, start to look in your practice and notice where you're already doing some of those things. And if you're a teacher, that might be a clue of how you can theme a class around the chakra if you're inclined to do so. There's certainly no need to do that if you're not inclined. The next time your chin comes back to center, find an apparent pause. Lift your chin up to neutral, and then roll over your crossed ankles. We're going to make our way into hero's pose. All right, so with this hero's pose, stack the joints, float your head over your shoulders, over your hips, over your ankles. For now, release your chin to your chest. And then on your next inhale, start pressing into your shins. Lift the crown of your head up. Draw your hands back to your glutes. Squeeze your elbows together behind your body as you press your hips forward. If it feels safe and comfortable for your neck, you can drop the crown of your head back behind you. Exhale, chin to your chest, seat to your heels. Inhale, press into your shins. Lift up into our camel pose. And continue flowing through this at the cadence and the pace of your own breath. Rising on each inhale. And setting back into hero's pose on each exhale. The next time you sit down into a hero's pose, lift your chin back up to neutral, find an apparent pause. So those are two examples of physical practices that you can use to activate Vishuddha, the throat chakra. And this brings us to the sixth chakra, which is Ajna, or third eye. Ajna, the Sanskrit Ajna translates into beyond wisdom. The approximate location along the spinal column, but this is the space between the eyebrows. So a lot of times too, there are other qualities associated with the chakras that I've not listed here. So for example, with the third eye chakra, it's the pineal gland, which is just behind there. It's a very, very sensitive light and dark meter that we have in our bodies. The element appropriate with that pineal gland connection is light. The color is indigo. The sound is Om. The demon or scar is illusion. The right is to see. Now, the purpose of Ajna Chakra is insight and intuition, but also particularly bringing the subconscious to the conscious mind. When it's balanced, it's said that our intuition will be clear and easy for us to understand. And the anatomy, again, is the forehead and the pineal gland. So you may notice if you're a yoga teacher, when you start to look at the anatomy, the higher up in the chakra system we go, the more limited we are in anatomy. So having a holistic, well-balanced practice that's physically themed around a chakra could be difficult. So what I would tell you with that, when you go to your handout, many of the chakras, especially the upper three chakras, the more substantive practices are less the physical practices and more some of the other consciousness practices. Nonetheless, let's look at some third eye chakra practices. So one is to put yourself in rhythm with nature. What does that mean? So it's getting into circadian rhythm. So if you self-identify as a night owl, you probably know um, going to bed late and sleeping in late, it's inflammatory, right? So we may have a personal identity as a night owl, but that doesn't mean that it's a healthy practice or way for us to live. So you might start small, but once or twice in the coming week, maybe start waking yourself, or rather going to bed by 9 or 10 o'clock, waking yourself up by 5 or 6 o'clock, and do that for a couple of days and just see how prepared you feel for the next day and how things go. I have a whole 12-month program called Next Level Human, where like the whole goal is the program is to get in alignment with our circadian rhythm, to put ourselves in rhythm with nature. Look for archetypical images that frequently arise in your dreams. So one way that you might choose to do this is to maintain a dream journal where you have a notebook or a journal next to the bed. When you wake up in the middle of the night, you jot down enough detail that you'll be able to remember the next morning. When you get up in the morning, start to write down what the dream was. So we have this bizarre combination of people and events that come up. I feel like these are messages that our subconscious mind is trying to bring to the conscious, um, often deeply steeped in symbolism. And it takes some time and some analysis and often some support to tease out what the archetypical images are, but it's there and it's a useful exercise, I promise. A third eye meditation, we may do in the practice, but what I would do with this, and I would say probably 30 to 50% of my daily meditation practice is third eye meditation. If you close down the eyes, with empty lungs, visualize a literal third eye in the space between your eyebrows. And then the eye opens. As you inhale, visualize golden white light from the clouds drawing down, pouring into your being through that eye. And then the eye closes. As you exhale, pull that light down into your heart. Inhale, that eye in your forehead opens. It draws in that golden white light. Exhale, that eye closes. Pull the light down into your heart. Deeper into your meditation, if you get the sense that your heart is full of light, that light can start to spill out into the whole rest of your being. Another third eye chakra practice is to create your day in your mind. What does that mean? So when we wake up in the morning, it's useful to take some time to open up to a wider perspective. Part of that might mean visualizing your day. So like playing out the day in your mind, responding to situations rather than reacting, being the person that you want as your day unveils in your mind. And if you've got any particular challenges, things that are coming that are difficult that you're struggling with, you can include those too. So when I get up in the morning, I have three practices that I do before I even get out of bed. One of them is to open to a wider perspective by creating my day in my mind. When I get to the end of the day and I've gone to bed, I'll also say, during this day today, I won't eat any processed foods. I won't eat any refined sugars. And there's a couple other things that are a little more personal than I'm comfortable sharing here that I struggle with. I include those as well. Another third eye practice, be judicious about what you consume. Yes, of course, what you consume physically, what you take in through your mouth, we need to be careful, but be judicious about what you take in through your eyes and ears as well. Here's an example. When I was a young soldier, I used to love listening to angry music, right? I loved that high energy level. But I'd start listening to this music in a pretty good mood, and then I'd listen for a couple hours, and a couple hours later, I'm furious, and I have no idea why. I have no justifiable reason to be angry. Angry music makes me feel angry. So, like, that doesn't feel good to me. I don't do that anymore. Be judicious about what you put in your eyes and ears, and also when, right? Just as we shouldn't be eating within 3 or 4 hours of when we go to bed, we probably should not be consuming any more media, either podcast form through the ears, or watching television and documentaries, or playing with our laptop computers in the hours immediately before bed as well. So something to think about. Also having a concentration practice. So I think, like, I've heard it said that if you're familiar with a mindfulness meditation practice, and if you're not, again, you can go to my content. I have mindfulness meditation practices available and ready for you there. That mindfulness meditation is as much concentration as it is meditation. I also think our third eye meditation we talked about earlier is a really good concentration practice. So those are some examples. Look at your handout for more detail or for more examples of practices. Let's take a look at some physical practices for ajna or third eye. So as for the upper chakras, the higher up we go in the chakras, I mentioned this in the discussion, the harder it is to find meaningful physical practices for those. But in many cases, especially for ajna, third eye chakra, and sahasrara, crown chakra, the most meaningful, beneficial practices that we have are not physical practices. They're other kinds of practices, right? So understanding that, there are a few things that we can do. So from third eye, anything you do to rub that space in between your eyebrows. So you could cue people here during meditation. I have a teacher that sometimes teaches a nadi meditation. You remember the discussion of the nadis? And there's a nadi, obviously, in this region as well, where you press your hands, you press one or two fingers into the space, and then you can remove them and still feel for that sensation there. Anything you do to rub that spot on your forehead, on the mat, on the block, so you can do that from child's pose, you could do that from puppy dog, and you can cue people to rock their forehead back and forth. But once again, for these upper chakras, I really think the more meaningful practices, like the third eye meditation practice that I kind of talked you through in a really simple, brisk way during the discussion, I think is a much better practice for ajna than anything you can do physically. That being said, those are a couple of examples of things that you might choose to do. And this brings us to the top of this chakra system, sahasrara, or the crown chakra. So I first heard this described and translated as the chakra of 1,000 petals. But I understand sahasrara means 1,000 petals. The location is the crown of the head in an area immediately above the crown of the head. The element is thought. The color is violet. The bija is silence. The demon is attachment. Now, I don't know if I talked about the energetic charge for third eye, but we know if throat chakra is masculine, if it's yang, third eye, ajna, has to be feminine, which means crown chakra also masculine. The right associated with crown chakra is to know. The purpose is conscious thought. Again, ajna chakra has to do with subconscious thought. Crown chakra has to do with conscious thought, but also connection with divinity. And the anatomy is crown of the head. So for yoga teachers, I will tell you, I don't recommend a physical practice that's themed around crown chakra, because I think it'll be unbalanced and pretty unsatisfying both for you as a teacher and your practitioners. But that's one person's opinion, friends. Let's look at some practices. Any kind of meditation, any kind of consistent meditation practice is useful for balancing the crown chakra. But so is daily intention through prayer. So I mentioned that before I even get out of bed in the morning, I have 3 practices that I do. One is to play out my day. to open to a wider perspective by playing out my day. I also do a prayer and I do a gratitude meditation before I ever get out of bed in the morning. So using that prayer as a way to set intention for the person that we're going to be that day, I think is really useful for balancing crown chakra. Practicing stillness and silence is also a great crown chakra practice. Now, that might be the meditation that we talked about, but it could be much bigger than that. It could be breath work. It could be time alone in nature. So it could be hiking. It could be anything, sitting under a tree, anything alone in nature. It could be your yoga practice, time in your yoga practice. Learning something new. Keeping your mind active. So I don't know what this would look like for you, but maybe look at your bucket list. What are the things you've always wanted to know? What are the things you've always wanted to do? We keep these bucket list items in the bucket because we always think we have more time. That's an illusion, friends. We have no idea how much time we actually have. So if, for example, I live in Texas. I've been working on learning Spanish about the last 12 years, and I'm still not fluent. That's something I'm going to steadily work on. Um, Here's something else. Like on my bucket list is to learn to play the ukulele well. Why the ukulele? I have no idea. What practical value and significance does it have in my life? As far as I can tell, none. It doesn't matter. My soul is calling for that. It keeps coming up for me. It's on my bucket list. So figure out what the things that would be new and exciting for you are, and maybe make some plans to start implementing those as learning. Crown chakra, especially when we're out of balance, it has a lot to do with our belief system. So look at your handout. There's a lot more detail on working with your belief system. But better still, check out either of Anno Deo Judith's books. Again, Eastern Body, Western Mind, and The Wheel of Life. Those are two of many of her books. Those are the two that I used. But if you also, there's the Journey Junkie is the name of a YouTuber. She's a yoga teacher, and she has these series of chakra chats. If you watch her chakra chat on the crown chakra, she has an excellent description of what it might look like to work with your belief system. I think that would be time well spent. Now, let's take a look at some physical practices for Sahasrara, the crown chakra. Right, so crown chakra, like the Ajna chakra, once again, the most meaningful, impactful practices that you can do for this chakra probably have nothing to do with the physical practice, right? So I would discourage you from theming a class physically around third eye or crown chakra. It's just not going to be a well-balanced, satisfying practice for you or probably for your clients. Um, that being said, anything you do to stimulate the crown of the head. So I'm not gonna demonstrate headstands. I have a headstand in my practice. I don't teach it hardly ever for the reason that it's really tough to get people through the hurdle of the first headstand to when they're experiencing they can be really safe with it, right? So like the potential for damage of the neck, they're just better inversions that we can do that don't come with that same sort of risk. That being said, if you have a headstand in your practice, that's a great heart chakra pose. Here's another one. If you've ever taken a Bikram class, we're sometimes cued into a rabbit pose, which starts sort of in a child's pose, but the hands on the heels, and then we rock forward, crown of the head on the earth, and puff the space between the shoulder blades up toward the stars. And you could do this as a pulsation, lowering the seat down toward the heels. On an exhale, inhale, lift up, rock up onto the crown of the head. So I would try to access the crown and ajna chakras again through other practices, but if you wanted some physical practices to help activate, those are a couple of examples. All right, friends. So over the last 2 hours, if you'll remember, I made certain promises, and these are the things that I've tried to provide for you. One is hopefully I helped you to find a tangible entry point in the chakra system that is verifiable based on your own lived experience. I hope that I helped you to develop an understanding of the chakras as energetic systems through which we can access our wholeness. I hope that my discussion on polarity and balance, particularly excessive or deficient chakra in the context of the chakra system, was helpful and useful for understanding the theory behind this system. And I provided you with a boatload, both in the discussion, but even more in your handout on actionable practices that you could use to restore balance. So again, you may never have an understanding of the chakra system that is more esoteric, more ethereal, more otherworldly than Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and this system can still have value for you. I also believe that, again, my goal when I started this journey was connection with divine consciousness. I've not got there through the chakra system. I've not gotten there, but this journey's been really valuable for me. It's been really great, and I've got a whole new understanding of my life through the context of the chakra systems. So if you're interested in learning more about how I've applied this in my life, if get in touch with me about some of my premium content on my Vimeo channels. And for almost every chakra, I have, or almost every chakra, I have practices that are either yin practices or vinyasa formatted or vinyan around that chakra system, which include a Dharma talk. And part of the Dharma talk is describing the way that my life is related through that chakra. So if that's useful, that's a resource that's available to you. I can make that available to you. But thank you so much for joining me, friends. I really appreciate your time, your attention, your engagement. Hope this was a great use of your time, and I hope to connect with you again soon.